Ladies and gents, my name is Xander, aka Deicide, and in this video, we're going to go ahead and discuss how to play on the Warlock, and more specifically, we're going to discuss how to play on the Stormcaller Subclass. Now, the reason why I love this subclass so much is because this thing can be used in multiple types of varieties based on your personal preference as well as your personal playstyle. If you have an aggressive playstyle or a passive playstyle or something that's a little bit in between, this subclass is going to be able to fit both of those playstyles exactly how you so see fit. If you want to be able to recharge your abilities faster, you can definitely do that. If you want to be able to get more damage output and chain multiple enemies at the exact same time, you can also do that. That's why this subclass is so great, and then if you combine that with the ability that you can have multiple team shots within your healing rift due to one specific characteristic of the subclass, then that's when all these things are going to come into play and makes this subclass a true monstrosity to be reckoned with in the crucible. The only thing left to do is to eviscerate that subscribe button, and let's jump right into the video. No matter what kind of subclass that you guys happen to be using, the number one most important thing for you to know how to do is know how to maneuver. And the way in which you do that for the Stormcaller subclass is from 1 of 3 jumps, each of which is called Balanced Glide, Focus Burst, or Controlled Glide. For Balanced Glide, that's a jump ability that provides bonuses to both speed and control. For Focus Burst, that's a jump ability that provides an initial burst of speed. And for Controlled Glide, that's a jump ability that provides better directional control in the air. Now for me, what I like to use is Focus Burst, and the main reason for that is because no matter what kind of gun battle engagement that I find myself in, that initial burst of speed to go up into the air or to go forward, left, or right can literally mean the difference between life and death. One more bullet could be the difference between actually surviving and dying, and that Focus Burst is going to give you that extra boost of speed right there at the beginning of the jump to get you into cover, out of cover, or for a doorway, or any type of those situations that I just mentioned. What you also have to know about Focus Burst is that that's going to allow you to have a Warlock glide or somewhat of a mini Warlock glide, just the same way that you were able to do so within Destiny 1. What the Warlock glide is jumping twice and then pushing the X button again to be able to burst you forward to give you a little bit more of an initial boost forward so that you cover more horizontal distance faster than what you normally could if you were simply just running. Now, if you were to compare that to Balanced Glide or to a Controlled Glide, neither one of those jumps can do that exact same thing, and that's why you have got to have on Focus Burst. Focus Burst is by far the best option here because it's going to allow you to get into cover and out of cover much faster, allow you to get into doorways and above doorways much faster as well, and also going to be able to allow you to cover horizontal distance in the fastest mean possible. And so for the overall maneuverability of the subclass, Focus Burst is definitely the way to go. Another Warlock ability that you guys can find on all the subclasses, including that of the Stormcaller subclass, is the option to choose from either a Healing Rift or an Empowering Rift. With a Healing Rift, you summon a Will of Light that continuously heals all those inside of it. With an Empowering Rift, you also summon a Will of Light, but in this case, you increase the attack power of those inside of it instead. Now, what I happen to use and what I would really recommend is using the Healing Rift, and that's because I cannot tell you the number of times that this Healing Rift has saved my bacon. I've been in so many gun battle engagements where I'm absolutely one-shot, I pop a Healing Rift around a corner, and then I'm already able to go back right into that gun battle engagement because I have full life and the enemy doesn't yet. Now, in addition to this, not only is it going to help you, but it's really going to help your entire team not just get back their health, but then also be able to push around a corner. And so having the Healing Rift is truly the most advantageous thing for you guys to have, not just for you, but also for your team. Now, what I would highly recommend that you guys do is pop the Healing Rift before you get into a gun battle engagement. If you guys happen to see a lot of Guardians with your radar that are around the corner, then pop that Healing Rift before you go around that corner so that you can go ahead and go into those gun battle engagements with a little bit of extra healing on, and at the exact same time, be able to dip back around that corner so that you can get the healing yourself. And what I would also recommend is that you pop the Healing Rift half around the corner and half behind a wall. And the reason for that is because what this will then allow you to be able to do is pop in and out of cover while at the exact same time always staying inside that Healing Rift, allowing you to almost guaranteed get that gun battle engagement and kill the enemy Guardian. One thing that you guys have got to do with the Healing Rift is to never ever spam the Rift or to place it in panic mode. The reason for this is because if you happen to place your Healing Rift while you're already in a gun battle engagement, the odds of you being able to successfully plant that Healing Rift while at the exact same time then finishing off the enemy Guardian is simply not going to happen. And the reason for that is because by the time that you're able to actually get down your Healing Rift, you're already taking damage as you're doing that, and by the time that's already up, you're going to be dead. That's why I would highly recommend that you guys use this as a precognition ability so that before you go into a gun battle engagement, you already know what's going to happen, and that makes the Healing Rift more applicable to you and your entire team. If you wanted to use the Empowering Rift, you most certainly could, but just keep a note that with the Empowering Rift, it really isn't that beneficial, and the reason for this is because it takes the exact same number of bullets for a full health Guardian with or without the Empowering Rift. So in all actuality, is it really that beneficial? I'll leave that up to you, but let me know which one that you guys are going to be using down in the comment section below, as I'm really intrigued to hear all your thoughts. When it comes to the Stormcaller subclass, you guys have 3 options to choose from for an overall grenade, one of which is called an arc bolt grenade, a pulse grenade, and a storm grenade, and all 3 of these grenades are designed for different types of scenarios and different types of situations, all of which are based upon your personal preference and your playstyle, and let me explain exactly how that's done. With an arc bolt grenade, this is a grenade that chains bolts of lightning to nearby enemies, damaging enemies once for a moderate damage output. A pulse grenade periodically damages enemies inside an explosive radius with an instantaneous damage output. A storm grenade calls down a focused lightning storm to damage multiple enemies for a delayed high damage output effect. Now with all 3 of these grenades, I have got to stress this, and I cannot stress this enough, is that you guys must, and I truly do mean this, you must use a pulse grenade. The reason why you want to use a pulse grenade is because this is the only grenade that does a true instantaneous damage output for around 40 to 50 points of damage. On top of this, it also does that pulse multiple times in rapid succession, and what that allows for is for multiple Guardians to be damaged very quick without them ever knowing that they were in the grenade to begin with. Literally, you can toss this grenade right into a doorway or into an area for a control effect, and so you can even use it not just to damage enemies, but also to prevent enemies from coming through a doorway or a passageway or some other hallway that's trying to be used, and so you can use this grenade as a control choke point, making it even more beneficial. Now if you wanted to go ahead and use the arc bolt grenade, then you most certainly could, but the only instance in which this is really available for is for close confined spaces, for rooms or possibly hallways, and the reason for that is because if it doesn't happen to hit them in the circular radius that it does only one time, then that grenade is pretty much wasted and it's really done for. If you wanted to use a storm grenade, you most certainly could again, and note that with this grenade, I will have to say that it actually does the most damage output, as I've seen this grenade do over 110 points of damage in just one pulse, but keep in mind that it only does one pulse, and that grenade is a radial effect from the air, so it also has a delay, and that delay may allow for other enemy guardians to go outside that grenade and make it null and void. So now that you guys know all this, I would highly recommend that you guys use this pulse grenade, because not only is it fantastic for doing high damage output in a very short amount of time, but it's the only grenade that does an instantaneous damage output, and it's also the only grenade that can hold a control point or a choke point for a long duration of time. One of the key characteristics of knowing how to use the Stormcaller subclass is based on one of the 2 skill trees that you guys can choose from, one of which is called the Attunement of Ions, and the other which is called Attunement of the Elements. With Attunement of the Ions, it's designed around 2 characteristics. One is to have a very powerful super, while at the exact same time being able to chain damage from one guardian to the next. With the Attunement of Elements skill tree, this build is designed around one key characteristic, and that is to recharge your abilities as fast as you possibly can. Now exactly how each one of these 2 things is done is exactly what we're going to get into, and we're going to start with the Attunement of Ion skill tree. With the Attunement of Ion skill tree, you have the very first perk here, and that's called Chain Lightning, and it states that you deliver an electrocuting arc melee strike at extended range that chains from one struck guardian to the next based on their proximity. With Arc Web, that states that the enemies damaged by your grenade also chain deadly lightning damage to nearby enemies. So as you guys can see from right there, between Chain Lightning and Arc Web, you're going to be able to chain damage from one guardian to the next, solely based on your melee or solely based on your grenade. The next 2 perks that we have here are called Transcendence and Ionic Blink, each of which affect your ability for your super. With Transcendence, it states that when you cast your Storm Trance with full grenade and melee energy, the Storm Trance lasts longer and fully restores your health. So the very nice thing about this is that even if you're one shot and you happen to have both your full grenade and also your full melee energy, not only are you going to be able to get that health back instantaneously, but you're also going to be able to have a longer storm trance, making the thing more powerful. At the exact same time, you also have another perk here that's going to affect your super, and that's called Ionic Blink. And it states that by pressing the sprint button during Storm Trance, that allows you to teleport while in Storm Trance. The wonderful thing about this is that while you're in your super, you are truly almost invincible with Ionic Blink. And the reason for that is because even if you happen to have another Fist of Havoc Titan charging right at you, you can literally blink right past him and still damage that Guardian, no problem whatsoever, while they're in their super, making this thing so unbelievably powerful. So as you guys can see, the Attunement of Ions build is designed for not only chaining damage, but also you have two perks that happen to help your super, and you're only going to get your super once or twice per game. This could be a plus or this could be a negative, and it truly just depends on how you want to use this skill tree, so keep all those things in mind. With the Attunement of the Elements build, you have one key primary perk here, and that's called Gale Force. And Gale Force states that this is an electrocuting melee ability that hits targets at extended range and recharges your super, grenade, and melee energy all at the exact same time. So coupled along with this very well is another perk called the Rising Storm, and it states that your rift charges faster when allies are nearby. So as you guys can see from right there, we have Gale Force and we also have Rising Storm that's going to recharge our abilities just the same way in which Chain Lightning and Arc Web did chaining damage, but in this case you're going to get your abilities much quicker, and this not only includes your super, but your grenade, your melee energy, and even your rift energy too. The wonderful thing about this Attunement of the Elements build is also the fact that this perk has Arc Soul. And Arc Soul states that your rift now grants you and your allies who happen to be within your rift an Arc Soul to aid you in battle. What this Arc Soul is a little white orb that's going to follow you around for 8 seconds. During that 8 seconds, if you happen to be into a gun battle engagement, that little white sphere is always going to help you out, and it's going to do approximately 15 points of damage per shot, and it's going to shoot around 3 times. What this ultimately equates to is essentially one body shot from a hand cannon, and that damage output is going to help you out so unbelievably much. Now on top of this, not only is it going to do that 3 times, but if you wait an additional 3, possibly 4 seconds, it's going to do it again, and that damage output is going to continuously stack on top of your own damage output from your weaponry, making Arc Soul so unbelievably powerful. Now in addition to this, not only are you going to be able to get that Arc Soul, but everyone who also happens to come into your rift is also going to get Arc Soul, and so imagine having 4 of your teammates all have Arc Soul, pushing 1 or pushing 2 Guardians. That literally means that you're going to be able to do 1 kill exactly just from all the Arc Souls between all your allies. If they all do 45 points of damage, you multiply that by 4, and that's almost 200 points of damage to kill 1 Guardian. You're only going to have to flick them in the forehead until that last Guardian is dead, and that's solely from the Arc Soul damage that's being done from all 4 of those Guardians at the exact same time. And the last part that we've got here on this subclass build is called Landfall, and Landfall states that on casting your Storm Trance, you fire a bolt of lightning into the ground, creating a devastating shockwave under you. Again, this is only for your super, but let me tell you that I can't tell you how many times that this Landfall ability has come into play for my super, and it's absolutely fantastic because I can't tell you how many times that I've gone directly over a Guardian, cast my Landfall, and boom, they're dead instantaneously, making me very applicable to go and search for more Guardians, or possibly get 2, sometimes even 3 Guardians within that one Landfall. Now that you guys have a very basic understanding of both the Attunement of Ion skill tree as well as the Attunement of the Element skill tree, you guys can really see as to how the Attunement of Ion skill is really meant for having chain damage as well as having a very powerful super, whereas the Attunement of Elements build is designed around having one key thing, and that's recharging your abilities, while at the exact same time giving your allies more abilities to shoot with, giving you the Arc Soul. The very last thing that I want to say about the Attunement of Ion skill tree in comparison to the Attunement of the Element skill tree is that the Attunement of Ion super is designed for having long passageways and long hallways, because then that's when Ionic Blink is most advantageously going to come into effect. In contrast to that, you have the Attunement of the Elements build, where this super is meant for closed confined spaces since you don't have Ionic Blink, and you can only jump up and down, left and right to make it very evasive, yet at the exact same time, it's perfect for those closed confined spaces because that's when it's going to be able to do the most damage output. So if I was you guys, I would possibly switch back and forth between one skill tree and the next, just solely depending on the map, but also keep all these things in mind what I previously said, and make a good educated decision on which one fits your playstyle the best. Now that you know the Stormcaller subclass in its entirety, along with all of the abilities that go with it, you guys can really make a solid decision on which one of these abilities is going to fit your playstyle the best. What I personally use is Focus Burst for a jump, Healing Rift for a rift, Pulse Grenade for a grenade, and the Attunement of the Elements build, because what I happen to find myself being in is more scenarios where all those abilities come into play the best. Now for you, it may be a little bit different, but try and fiddle around with everything so that you guys can really have a solid understanding of what works best for you and what doesn't, because once you do fiddle around with that, I guarantee you that with a little bit of practice, you guys are going to be absolutely eviscerating, shredding, and demolishing Guardians everywhere in the Crucible, and it's going to make the enemy Guardians a little bit stealthy. Now let me know what kind of builds that you guys are going to happen to choose down in the comment section below, as I'm really intrigued to hear all that stuff, as I think that you will come up with some different types of builds that I didn't think about, and when that happens, I can't wait to hear all of that so that I can try out myself. Lastly, go ahead and check out some of my other new videos, as you guys can see right there on the screen. If you happen to enjoy this one, then you're definitely going to enjoy those as well. That's pretty much all that I've got for you as of right now, and so as always, deislayers, great gaming, until next time.